experience between Africans and African Americans is like different, right? So Christina actually is a perfect guest because she has a Nigerian name, but she was born and raised here. So
Yeah,
honestly,
so she has a Nigerian name. Is she not Nigerian?
actually, that's a good question, Christina. If I say where are you from, what do you say? What's your answer to that?
I feel like it really depends on what group of people I'm talking to. Like I think
Okay.
for the majority of the time in America, like I'll just say I'm black because there's an understanding, I think, here that even if you're not 100% black, you're still black. And that seems,
Yeah.
that's just like the easiest way for me to like end that conversation. But if I'm like really trying to talk to somebody, I'll be like, oh no, yeah, I'm Nigerian. And then they'll be like, giving me looks, and I'll be like, well, I'm also half white, and then I'll just leave it there. Um, I don't know.
Mm,
I'll just say I'm mixed. It really just depends on who I'm with, I think.
okay. Okay.
I mean,
So
it's always
they'll.
annoying that like you have to preference that, like, because even when I was in the UK, it was the same shit. When they look at me, I'm like, yeah, I'm Nigerian, but then they start asking me all these questions and giving me all these looks because I don't sound the typical Nigerian. But like, but yo, like I was raised in Nigeria, like I'm straight Nigerian. So it's weird even for people that are mixed or they're like half this, half that. When you say you're something, they still look at you like, nah, where are you really from? Like, is it that hard to believe I'm
I mean,
Nigerian?
but is that wrong though? Like, is there a problem with that?
Yeah, because that means they've
Why?
already boxed you. Because they already boxed you in, and they
No, I
already
don't think I don't. No, I
there's
don't think
a
they're not boxing you in. They're just kind of trying
Like
to fit you
stereotypes.
into what they know, though. Is
that's
this
literally what
stereotype?
boxing. That's literally what boxing
Okay,
is.
okay. I guess. Is it bad though? Like it's like.
I mean, we'll get on that in this topic because I think part of it relates, or part of what I think about this topic relates to that anyway. So we'll get there.
Okay, so Christina, I don't know if you know this, but there's been this ongoing beef between Africans and African Americans, and there was a while ago on Twitter when like everybody was going off was on Twitter Spaces. Did you kind of hear about that at all, or?
I didn't hear about the Twitter thing, but I'm like well aware that there's,
Oh, you were
ten.
aware
Mm.
of the beef. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think about it? What's your stance on that?
I think it's a really loaded question,
Yeah.
like I get it to an extent, but like I don't know, I always at the end of the day, I feel like African Americans like need to recognize, and Africans as well also need to recognize that African Americans are, really just Africans who were forced to like
Okay.
survive throughout like the American condition,
Mhm.
so they're not like the same people, but like you guys are at the end of the day. Like I don't know how to make that make sense. Like we're all still one family is like my point. And I think there's a lot of just cultural differences.
Mhm.
Uh, when you look at it from purely like cultural perspective. And I think there's also on a lot of like on both sides, I think there's a lot of anger and like a lot of guilt and like a lot of people again on both sides just needing to learn their proper histories.
Part of what you said is also what I think about it because yeah, like the cultures, and I think it really comes down to the culture because the cultures are completely different. Like whilst Black Americans came from slavery and Africa into America, I still feel like at this point, the Americans living right now, like maybe six, seven generations removed from the ones that were actually taken as slaves. And then all Black people in America aren't necessarily African because there's also like a big Caribbean influence in America. So what I think what Americans have, or African Americans have over there, is more of a it's more of a connection through slavery than a connection through Africa, if that makes sense. Even though you came from Africa, so all the Black people or most of the Black African Americans, not the ones that maybe second generation, most of the ones that are like six, seven generations removed, I think they have that connection through slavery. So they built an American culture because when they first got there, it was just white America, and then slaves
Mm,
and Black people came over time. So when they now got independence, or not independence, what's it called?
emancipation.
Emancipation, yeah. Yeah. Once
Mm,
they got emancipation, they had to build like an African American culture, if that makes sense. And the African American culture isn't isn't the same as an African culture. So I think primarily that's where that disconnect comes from. So whilst they're labeled African American, they're not really well, they're not really African American from a cultural sense. They're
See, like
definitely
that's
American.
yeah. And I feel you. Let me, Christina, let me push you a bit. So here's my thing. I feel like the term African American, it's like it's just wrong. Because like you can't be African and like it doesn't make sense in my head. I feel
That's
like you're either African or American. I mean, if we have to prefix it, I guess we can say Black American. So what you said though, you said kind of like sometimes I guess they need reminding that it's just all one big family. But like, why though? See what I'm saying? Like, I think sharing the skin color in common, but the culture is still so different. So why is there this vibe of like, oh no, we have to be friends? We have to be friends, or we have to be like amicable. I guess I don't know if you see where I'm coming from on that aspect.
I don't know about like necessarily like having to be friends or anything. But I again like back to like the family like kind of point, like in a very broad sense, I meant that. But like if I guess like another like connectivity point is though like that universal kind of black oppression and like suffering
Okay, okay.
is going to understand that, you know, as a black American would, and that's going to happen wherever you are in the world. If you want to take like a French black man or something like that, you know. Um,
Mm,
so like you say culture, you know, like is very different, and you know, in America, Black Americans have their own culture, and that's completely separate from, you know, kind of modern day Africa because it's so far removed. And I agree with that to an extent. But I think like when you also look at so many core tenets of like the black family in America, like those people still tried to hang on to whatever parts of their original cultures they had. But like again, like through
yeah,
slavery, as we mentioned, like there was so much purposeful destruction towards the Black American family. Like, so how would these people, if they even wanted to, you know, successfully carry on the traditions of their ancestors? There's going to be some change.
yeah,
And yeah,
mm,
there is extreme change, like I said, between Black American culture and then African culture, you know, as a whole. But again, like going back to the root of it, that's my kind of thing. Like they have those same bonds, and like again, family, but like this Black American family was like cut off from the rest of their family for like generations upon generations and put through like horror. Does that
yeah,
make sense?
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
100%. Yeah.
I'm actually curious, like from your experience, and not just you personally, even your friends, but from the most black people in America, because there's the ones that know which part of Africa they're from, so maybe they're Nigerian, they're Ghanaian, so someone like you that you know you're Nigerian, but then there's the ones that actually also don't know where they're from. Do you feel like, um, so first, with the ones that know where they're from, you already mentioned that they try to hold on to their culture. So the ones that don't know where they're from, do you think they're just content being American, or do you feel like they also want to try and get to know more of themselves?
I think like it's so hard again, like I don't want to paint everybody as having the same opinion, but I
Yeah,
would say that there is like a lot of kind of just pain or confusion or like wanting like just from like a human standpoint to know
yeah,
where your people come from.
yeah.
Like everybody always, like it's just an innate human thing. We want to know where we come from. So I think there is like a lot of maybe repressed feelings about that also, honestly, like in the Black community in America. Like just because
Mm,
it's such a taboo and like sensitive subject, like again, going back into all these different layers of everything. Um, but I would say, like, also on the same side, there's a lot of Black Americans who are just fine and strong in that identity and don't feel
Mm.
like they need to know anything about their previous history because, you know, again, it's a hard history, but like they've, you know, successfully thrived and survived despite all of that. So maybe, you know, again, they're just trying to start a new leaf. I don't know. Depends person to person, really.
I mean, even Skills did Ancestry.com, so
well,
and
I
we know
did
where you're
because
from.
like okay. Well, the only reason I did it is because I'm like I must be partly British, bro. Because like that's the vibe. That's why.
And were you partly British?
Well, I'm not, but that's not the. I still have to check, bro. Chill, guy.
Nigga from the end of Kutun.
I can't remember where you said he was from. But yeah,
It was
Rose,
like
what do you think?
97% Nigerians. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Rose, what you said?
Oh, wait, I want to ask Christina a question. Do you feel like some of the Black Americans who like try to trace their roots use it as an opportunity to like, especially like the celebrities, to like exploit like the locals of probably that country? For instance, like maybe a celebrity has roots to like Ghana or something. Do you think like they try to use those roots to, exploit like the locals, try to make a kind of a name for themselves or something along the lines?
That's interesting.
I mean, I don't know if I'm understanding your question well enough. Like,
I think it's
exploit.
kind of like he's
Wait.
trying to describe
Someone
like.
like Michael Blackson, for example, right? So Michael Blackson is, I think he's
Yeah.
from Philly, but
Are you
he's also
familiar with Michael
Ghanaian.
Blackson, by the way?
Yeah, I know him.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's from Philly, but he's also Ghanaian. But he
Mm.
speaks most of his like public appearances, he speaks in like this fake African accent. So most people don't actually know he's American. So then people in Africa and Ghana like think he's one of us, but actually he's American. So I think what he's saying is, do you think people like that put on these acts to show like the American or the African so that they can gain an African following and more supporters, and then exploit that following to build like a bigger brand for themselves, even though they may not necessarily care about the culture? I don't know if you can even answer that, but anyway, it's you can have a
Yeah,
go.
that's kind of a loaded question for her.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think about it so much. Okay, so I think they like definitely like exploit like caricatures of like Africans in general. And like again, like it's just so hard because even just saying African, like that's such like how many people live in Africa? How many different
So many.
millions,
Yeah,
millions?
man.
Like I don't know. I think like it's just such a bad like way to group people, honestly. Like if you want to get specific, that's much better in my opinion. Um, but like so people who do that, I think like they're definitely exploiting and like, making fun of to an extent of like a culture or a group of people, and it's not cool, but I think they're doing it for their American and foreign audiences who are not African, kind of in order to like play on that sensitivity that like people don't know a lot about Africa still to this day. Um, and it's wrong, but I don't think, well, I think that it needs to be like African people, like straight out of the continent, to stand up and be like, hey, that's not okay. And then like actually call these people out on it rather than anyone else. Because I don't know, just like the principle of the thing, I think it's like that's how it should be handled. But yeah, I don't know. It's wrong at the end of the day. Did that partially answer your question?
Yeah, because it's funny you mentioned that African people should call out these things. Recently, I want to believe you guys have all seen it, the whole Jackie I know thing,
I
where
have not actually.
so basically like she released, I think it's a whole new perfume line, and like most of the brand names for the perfumes, she gave them like common Nigerian slangs. I know, I think there was no wahala. But the one that ticked people off the most was the one where she named one of the perfumes Sorosuke. And like
Okay. Right.
What does that mean?
it means like speak up. And
Oh,
Yeah, it's
that's what
from
they
the
use for the
SARS
NSAS.
from the
Okay,
SARS
got it,
thing.
got it,
yeah,
got it.
Yeah.
exactly. So like you look at that kind of thing, and everybody was outraged because that tag Sorosuke was meant to show some
Because
form
of
of
the meaning
solidarity.
behind it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, people died during the whole NSAS, the October 20 massacre. Like so many people died. Innocent people's blood was shed. I know. And imagine coming out to see that someone has used that tag. I mean, even aside from the whole Jackie I know stuff, I think there was a I think she's an American, a writer who just recently published
Oh
a
yeah, I saw
book
that
as
one.
well.
I saw that.
I know. And in the book, she claimed she was the one that coined the term Sorosuke.
I
And I'm
mean,
just
not
like,
really. If you actually read it properly, not really. But people are already mad, so I just like, just let it be. But not really.
yeah, what can you explain like what exactly like he did?
I don't even remember exactly, but I remember because this was last year, wasn't it? Like when the whole thing came out.
Was it last year or this
Um,
year?
yeah, it was probably, I think it was last year. It was definitely a while ago at this point. So I remember reading the passage. So there was a line that said it's more so like coined. I can't remember it specifically enough to
Yeah.
explain it, but I remember at the
Say something
time like
about coined.
she didn't, yeah, but she didn't actually like if in the earlier paragraph she mentioned like this was a phrase Nigerians used as whatever whatever whatever. So she didn't actually say I'm the one that invented it. Because it had that one line where it said something about the coined phrase, people just ran with that. But if you actually read, if I find it, I'll actually send it to the group after this. But you see like it was just a misunderstanding over there.
Yeah, well, pretty much at the end of the day, like it's this whole thing is quite triggering for a lot of Africans. And even aside from that, let me just digress a little on the whole football thing and foreign
Oh,
players and all. I'll
okay.
just refer to you know where I'm going.
I
You know where I'm
do.
going.
Actually, I don't know where he's going, so I'm curious.
Okay. So Ghana just qualified for the World Cup. They defeated us, unfortunately.
They did, yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
you have Inaki Williams, you have, I think, Tariq Lamptey. These people did not represent Ghana during
The
the
whole time, as soon as they
qualifying
Oh,
round.
qualified,
okay. Yeah.
But
yeah,
as soon as Ghana
all of a
qualified,
sudden they are Ghanaian. Yeah, like
yeah,
that's what the
releasing
vibe.
video with lion head and all those nonsense, saying that, oh, they are from the motherland and all that kind of shit. And like, why wouldn't people be enraged when they see things like that? I mean, like, you claim that, oh, you want to help your nation, but during the times when they were actually putting in the work, you were nowhere to be found. So, like, people always perceive that, man, these guys, they are not doing this thing for the good of us. It's just personally for their own gain. Because, I mean, Inaki Williams, I think he's partly Spanish, and there's no way he's making it into the Spanish
Facts,
team. Same
facts.
thing with Tariq Lamptey. He's not getting into the English squad. Hudson Odoi, too. So, like, when you think of those things, it's quite sad, honestly.
Okay, Rose, just to clarify the writer one. So she didn't claim she coined the phrase Sorosuke. She said she called us the Sorosuke generation. So that's what she's saying. Like she coined the phrase Sorosuke generation in reference to the people that fought the
But
NSAS
did
team, but not
she,
actually the
I mean,
phrase.
did she actually coin Sorosuke generation? I mean, we've heard that a couple of times.
I mean, officially like written, or you mean just in passing?
I guess just in passing, like
I mean, regardless,
something.
even if someone said it before her, it's just to clarify that she's not actually saying
Yeah,
she
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 didn't
made
say
up
that
the
she coined
phrase.
the term.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
makes
So
sense.
Christina, have you seen Black Panther?
Of
I mean,
course.
obviously you've seen it. Obviously you've seen it.
we're,
What did you
we're
think
going back
about
to this.
Black Panther?
Cultural iconic moment that I'll never forget. It was
I agree with you.
amazing.
So you enjoyed the movie?
Oh, I loved
These
it.
guys over there.
Oh, okay, okay.
Did you guys
Don't
see that?
don't you feel like like they should have added more African actors and actresses? I'm just saying, like, because Chadwick, he killed it. Obvious, everybody killed it. I just felt like the cast was like it could have been like actual, like some guys like that came from actually like from African countries.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair point. Honestly, I don't know how many like African actors were like cast in it. Like I know like the main cast wasn't African. But like I'm thinking like background and everything.
Background, possibly, actually, I don't know.
Like I think
Possibly.
they could have been. Like I don't know, living in LA, one, I know how difficult it is for like any opportunity for actors of color, like
Yeah.
particularly Black actors of color. I can't imagine like the subset of African Black actors, you know? So I'm totally in favor of like accurate representation whenever, wherever possible. And I think like, yeah, there definitely should have been more, but like, I guess like I'm just hesitant to like critique Black Panther in any way, you know, because like I said, it was such like a cultural thing.
Yeah, that was definitely a big moment though, for sure.
Yeah, like so there were just so many
I mean,
wins, I think. Like I don't want to admit to any losses of it.
yeah, I have less of an issue with Black Panther, to be honest. Like for Black Panther, at the end of the day, most of the actors were actually partly African. I can't remember the names anymore, but Letitia Wright, I think is part maybe Ghanaian.
Okay.
She looks like half like I think she
Lupita
might be
too.
Ghanaian.
Lupita
Lupita
is
is
like
African. The guy
I
that played
guess, yeah.
the big guy, I can't remember the big guy's name, but he was also
Same
in that Jordan Peele movie.
guy that played
Us.
Mbaku. Oh, okay.
M'Baku, yeah, he's also African.
His name
So
again.
there's I think
Nathaniel
there's adequate,
Kaluuya.
yeah. So there's adequate
Isn't he
representation, I
British?
think, in Black Panther. I mean, he's part British, but he's also African. Like he has African descent.
I mean,
Yeah, I think from Kenya.
You're not
yeah.
getting like actors straight from Nollywood into
That's what I want.
billion-dollar
No,
no.
get them
Like let's be
straight.
real.
Get
Let's
them
be
from the
real with
streets. I put them
you know
in the
what?
movie. That's what I'm saying.
I have more of a problem with like Coming to America. As classic of a movie as Coming to America is, Coming to America perpetrates a lot of African stereotypes and rhetorics that are just not accurate and kind of destructive in the long term because a lot of American people who actually haven't been to Africa or any parts of Africa know what African people are like. They take what they know from Africa from movies, news.
And then
Like
they
a lot of
make
it
it.
is
Yeah.
based on pop culture. So a movie like Coming to America, as popular as it was, with the accents and the like ignorance and everything that this guy that just came from Africa is is perpetuating in an American city, it's not really accurate. So then when someone from Africa or Nigeria goes to, like when I first got to the UK, if you saw the questions I got asked, it's like, yo, do you guys have universities? Someone legitimately asked me if I had universities. And I'm just like, yeah, we have universities. And bro, like a lot of these ideas come from movies, like because they just don't know. And my main issue is, although we also get a lot of stereotypes from movies, because like I've always said, I feel like if I go to America, I'll get shot tomorrow, but it's obviously not true.
I
I
mean,
just feel
you
like if I'm
won't get
walking,
shot in a
yeah,
day.
but if I'm in the
You'd
wrong
be
part of
shot in
LA, the
like
wrong
5 days,
colored
bro.
trousers, shit, like, yeah, maybe not, you know, like I just feel like, it's just what I've seen. But I feel like the difference is what I know or what I feel about America is told to me by Americans, either from music or movies, sitcoms, whatever. It's written by an American. So I have like a legitimate reason to believe its authenticity to an extent anyway.
I guess that's
Whereas most of the things about Africans that Americans digest are also written by Americans. So there's that disconnect where it's not just an accurate representation. So they digest these things. And then when I come to UK or US from Africa, they call me a freshie, which is also a slave reference. And I'm just like, yo, this shit ain't cool. But I guess it's not their fault entirely. But I just
that's
wish it
what I was
wasn't
going
that
to
way.
say. Is that it's just what they see on TV,
Yeah.
So.
I wish they just put more effort into getting like actual Africans to write a script
research, do
that
like
has,
actual
yeah,
research or stuff.
actual research. Even in movies when it comes to Muslim things, if you see people trying to pray in a movie, I'm just like, what are you actually doing? Like, it's not that difficult. Like, the actual movements in a prayer is not that, but they just mess it up and just do whatever. And I'm like, yo, this shit ain't cool. Like, anyone could have told you how to do this properly, but they don't bother to do it because it doesn't matter to them. So that shit's kind of annoying to me.
No, it's facts, bro. It's facts. They just don't know. That's true. Because the first time I just got here too, they were like, "Oh, like we can't believe you have phones in Africa." I was like, "Yeah, we have fucking phones," and they were like, "Nah, you're lying. What's the area code?" And I'm like, "Bitch."
What's the area code?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
it is
never
what it is.
forget that. I'll never forget that J. Cole concert, guy.
Or when J. Cole went to
Just
Nigeria and then, oh
yeah,
my
when he came to
days,
Oh yeah,
Nigeria,
yeah,
just
yeah.
guy,
the comments were
Americans went
crazy.
off. Guy, that comment section was insane.
They got lights out there.